Hello all and welcome to the video. This video is going to be an informal first impression of the preview build for Amazon Game Studios' upcoming title, New World. As I said a moment ago, this is a preview build and not the beta. The beta and the release of the game are stated for spring 2021, so next year. The preview comes out on the 25th of August and I've managed to play about 6 hours over the last 2 days. Now, as I said, this is an informal look, so in some areas I may go into depth and elaborate, and in other areas I may not. I'm mainly going to discuss things that stuck out for me, the good and the bad. A thing to note during this video, the game footage itself has no audio. Unfortunately, this was due to a recording error and not due to the game. However, I didn't want the 6 hours of footage to go to waste, so here we go. Whenever I start up a game, the first thing I do is always immediately go into options. I like to ensure the game I'm about to play can be customized for my needs. Something small that I immediately noticed is that the menu is smooth and responsive regardless of where it is in development. This is something that is worth a note, as I've played many games that were weeks away from release with slow and unresponsive settings in their menus. There seem to be different regions with different server clusters, such as a cluster for the EU and a cluster for the US, etc. I can't remember if there was more or if there is going to be more in the final release. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up about server clusters is due to the fact I found this menu quite confusing. This could be because I'm a colossal moron, but I didn't really understand what each of these names actually meant in the server list. Some of them had unique names, but they were bundles of 3 of them, and they would share the same suffix. Hopefully that will be explained more by the developers at some point, but yeah, that's something to note. The initial opening CGI was okay. I can't quite put my finger on it. The animation for the CGI cutscenes seemed like they had put a lot of thought into it, but it didn't seem gripping to me personally. I did not feel a reason to care about what was about to happen and what was about to push me into this fantasy world. This part needs to be said. This is one of the worst MMO character creators I have seen in a very long time. It was very limited. There were 4 categories to choose from: face, skin tone, hairstyle, and facial hair. Each of the 4 categories had barely any options. In terms of hair colour, there was an odd abundance of non-natural hair colours like blues and greens, and women could also have facial hair like beards. Despite this option, this still felt extremely limited. I did not enjoy the character creator at all. After character creation, you are thrust straight into the basic tutorial for combat. Honestly, the way they designed this initial combat tutorial was actually pretty good. It was straightforward and easy to pick up for any end user. Now, I didn't skip any cutscenes, but a part of me still felt confused on what was going on story-wise. But at least I knew where to prod the pokey end of the stick. Now, it's worth noting that in this game, you level up weapons individually as you use them, and doing so gets you mastery points to spend on skills for that particular weapon. I wish, however, that you got to play around with more of the varying weapon types in the tutorial, but I guess the point of this is to sort of get you into the action ASAP. The controls itself are very different to other action MMOs, but I cannot say that they were bad because they weren't. Once you get used to where the button mappings are, the controls are actually quite reasonable and quite simple to pick up. Now, it is still easy to press the wrong button every so often with the default layout. Here you can see the first boss battle that bookends the initial combat tutorial. I got hit a few times during this and I noticed that the combat seemed sort of like Dark Souls. However, as I went through the boss, it became evident that this was a poor man's Dark Souls. It was far less smooth and intuitive. I'll get to this much later, as range combat itself has many issues. I really liked the craft and gather and survival focus of this game. I'm not usually a huge fan of the sort of survive and craft everything genre, but I honestly didn't mind how it's structured in this game, because there's no sleep, there's no water, there's no hunger meter like there tends to be in this sort of genre of game. I really enjoyed the idea that you need to gather and craft everything and become self-sufficient. Now, unfortunately, this is not really fully explained in the game, but this actually also affects the economy of the game. Someone in the comments may disagree with me, but I find that this game could have done a better job warning players early on that crafting is the most important thing, and they should probably be sort of desynthesizing and like salvaging their gear rather than hoarding the items to sell them. This game doesn't have vendors that you can sell your trash items to for money. You can salvage unwanted gear or sell it on the player trading post for gold. However, other players have to see the worth in your item to actually want to buy it. So most of the time, you want to actually be salvaging your unwanted items for parts or materials. Now, parts can be used to repair your other gear, and materials will obviously be used for crafting. As stated, this game has a rich crafting system and the EXP trees for each different subtype of crafting gathering in this game. The more you level these up, the more access you have to higher cool things that are available on their sort of trees. Remember, in this game, it is a must to make your character self-sufficient. If this is not something you enjoy in an MMO, then maybe this is not the game for you. Quest structure. I don't know how else to say this, but quest structure in this game is really bad. Almost every quest is essentially the same design. Go here and kill this amount of things, or kill this specific enemy and collect the quest items that they drop, which are usually quite low drop chance. Sometimes this type of quest will be mixed with, oh yeah, and loot X amount of chests in this area too. This does not change, and talking to some other players that actually reached near the sort of end of the end game, this doesn't really change in said version of endgame that is currently available. This doesn't change throughout the whole entire leveling experience. Unfortunately, this game does not have enough story or ambient story to sort of forgive this mundane type of quest design. In a sort of 2020 or a 2021 upcoming Western MMO, this is not a good sign. The game has a lot of potential, especially with a rich crafting system that it does, but this makes the game look dull. Another aspect that really hampers this game is the fact that the vast amount of your time is wasted running or auto-running from location to location. Sure, it is good that the map is big, but the biomes from what I saw within the 6 hours that I played don't hugely differ. Now, in regards to the biomes, I'm actually going to have to give the game the benefit of the doubt, because I cannot say truthfully explored enough of the map to fully and honestly judge the biomes, but the amount of running that players are forced to do back and forth for the cookie cutter kill and collection quests, which often run you back to the same locations over and over. By the time I reached the 6 hour, I pretty much had to stop because I just had enough. Now, I worry for this game because at the rate that it's going, the life expectancy of the game is going to be pretty short. And I do not believe it's going to be able to maintain a community if the game is just these boring quests and this long travel distance. It's a problem. For half of my playthrough, I focused on making my character a magical character, but after hours of play, I came to realise that magic is just simply garbage. The aiming reticle doesn't always aim where your spells have shot. And sometimes your spells and projectiles go through the enemy, or they move out the way because of the janky hitboxes. Now, magic feels frustrating and it feels very underpowered. Bows and guns suffer from some of the same issues, but not to the same degree. In the end, I ended up changing my build to a hatchet and musket build, which simply felt better in every single way. Up until that point, I really wasn't having any fun in combat. It felt like it was a means to an end. And after that, the combat felt much more fast-paced and more enjoyable, but unfortunately the game was still really boring due to the quest design and running everywhere. A little side note, I did find it super interesting that how far you dodge and the type of dodge is actually dependent on the weight of your total armor. Now, due to this, I ended up preferring light armor due to be able to do a really quick and far combat dodge roll. Something I found strange is that each weapon could only equip 3 skills at a time. Change weapons, whether in combat or out of combat, sort of triggered this extremely long global cooldown. Quite often, this cooldown was actually longer than the cooldown of the skill itself, and this affected all of the skills on both weapons that were equipped. At the stage I was in the game, I could only equip 2 weapons at a time, so level 1 and level 15 you could have 2 weapons. But this long global cooldown really affected things. One last thing though, a quick sort of visual cool side thing. I really did enjoy the fact that I could physically see all of the weapons that I had equipped on my character's model. That was pretty cool. I don't think it would be completely fair for me to fully discuss PvP as I didn't experience it personally. I did, however, watch it in the open world happen many times. Something that was very odd to me was the fact that me, as someone that was not flagged for PvP, could resurrect a player that was flagged for PvP immediately after they had died in the open world due to PvP, and there was no consequence for this. This seemed to be a big world PvP no-no in regards to a game design sense. The game has 3 factions for the player to choose from. Each of the factions have a different feel, but I won't go into detail about what these different feels are, but the idea is you pick one and your character is permanently tied to that faction. The faction, if my understanding was correct, locks you into being able to join guilds from that faction, and you can only play with your friends if they're also from that faction. The 3 factions can also own territories and towns, and from a first glance it actually seemed pretty cool. However, it was evident on my server that 2 of the factions dominated all of the territories. The faction I actually wanted to join I didn't pick because they were just too outnumbered for whatever reason, and I really wanted to test PvP at some point, and I didn't want to sort of immediately be swarmed during this preview. For now, I cannot think of any more points I want to say at this stage of the preview, so I should conclude on some of the points that I've stated so far. This game has a lot of potential. However, Amazon has a lot of work to do from now until next spring, especially since the other game they released earlier this year flopped pretty hard. And I'm unsure if this is partly why the game has been delayed multiple times this year to the point of simply postponing the release until next year. As the game is right now, the graphics look great, the animation looks alright, the game itself is pretty boring and uninspired, except for the life skills and the crafting. I feel out of everything, and it's only really the crafting systems that feel retail ready. Every other aspect of this game feels like a half-finished idea. As this game has showed a lot of potential, I honestly do wish Amazon the best. Range combat needs to be worked on, especially magic, which feels truly awful and unfun to play. I've heard or maybe read somewhere that there is a lot more weapon types to be released in the final game, which is actually really exciting to hear, as I found that the best weapon for me personally was the hatchet for pretty much everything, so I'd love to be able to explore some more weapon types. We'll have to see what Amazon does with all the advice that they've been given. Now, if you are someone that has access to the preview, please do not forget to submit your feedback to Amazon using the in-game feedback provider, or visit the official forums for the game and give your advice. I believe that all and any feedback will be able to be useful to the developers, and it will help them grow this game. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for any future content on anything. So I guess I'll see you later, and goodbye.